Welcome to the pop-up call. Awesome. You're actually going to get to see something very cool because we have two clients on the call. So for the first person I was speaking with, can I say your name?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so hi, Diego. Why don't you give short introduction of yourself and then your question?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kaneisha. My name is Diego. I'm in Washington, D.C. I'm currently a consultant, and my objective with you guys is to go for an MPA or an MBA program.
Okay, wonderful. And then what question can I answer for you today?
I'm really interested about the Stanford Knight-Hennessy scholarship. I've been working towards that deadline in October 8th, and I do have some questions on in what ways I can bring my own experiences to make me a really good candidate for this scholarship.
Absolutely. So the Knight-Hennessy Scholarship, for anyone who doesn't know, is a extraordinarily competitive and generous fellowship that basically covers full tuition, I think up to 5 years to study basically whatever you want at Stanford. We've had 3 clients get the Knight-Hennessy Scholarship, including one the first year it was ever created. So I do feel like out of all the admissions consulting companies, we are really well qualified to help people with that. And all the different clients have been of different ethnicities. So that makes me very encouraged that this is really something that's open to everyone. So we had first an American of Hispanic heritage from 2 different countries, then second, a white woman, and then third, a Persian Canadian, I believe, Iranian Canadian. So I'm hoping that Diego and a few other clients will be number 4, 5, and 6. One thing that I know that David, Brianna, and Armin had in common is, first of all, they weren't all studying the same thing. One, it was business, law, education, and like engineering something. But one thing I would say is their personal story came through really clearly in their Knight-Hennessy application. Obviously, like overcoming adversity, even their family overcoming adversity, a real pattern of contribution and giving back, and real clarity about how they would use the scholarship and make the most of it to enhance the great things that they'll do in the world. With all 3 of those clients, it was like they're going to do great things in the world, whether you give them this scholarship or not. The scholarship is actually going to amplify their impact and the speed at which they're going to accomplish these things, but they're going to do great things whether you give them this money or not. So when I say that, Diego, what does that say to you about what you would maybe do in your application?
Those are really good points. Thank you very much for that. For now, I'm really advancing to these essays as I should be because it's on October 8th. What I'm really missing at this point is to tell a story of how the KHS really will help me amplify or reach further into these goals that I have. I've been able to tell them about the program that I'm going to, how that connects in my short-term and long-term objectives, a really clear path of the things that I want to do. But I haven't really connected on the way that this scholarship really particularly helps me build a better curriculum or just be a better candidate for the things that I want to do in the future.
Let me give you a framework, okay?
Yeah.
So this is a similar framework that we use to pitch ourselves to a school. The framework for pitching ourselves to a school would be why me and why now and why this school. So the why me, why now, why this school is how we pitch ourselves to a school. And then to get more specific, we talk about the classes we would take. We talk about the clubs that we would participate in, either as a leader or as a member. We talk about what about the culture of the school resonates with us and how would we contribute to that culture. And then we talk about the resource centers at the school that we would want to participate in or learn from. And so those are some of the, I'm sure I forgot a few more C's, but those are the things we kind of touch on to pitch ourselves to a school. So when we're pitching ourselves to one of these big, juicy scholarships, like Knight-Hennessy Scholarship, or like those big, amazing scholarships at Harvard Kennedy School and the Center for Public Leadership, What we want to do is a very similar thing. Why me? Why this particular scholarship or fellowship, and why now? So the things that a fellowship usually is comprised of, number one is the money, right? So what would receiving such generous funding change about the trajectory of your career and your life? I will tell you that I was a semi-finalist for a full scholarship at the Kennedy School. And because I deferred, it didn't work out. It was kind of a mess. And it negatively affected the trajectory of my life tremendously financially, to end up graduating with $150,000 in student loans. I didn't buy my first house until I was 35 or 36 years old. So like that's a negative example, right? But what are positive examples of receiving such generous funding on the types of choices you can make about your career, and the choice and the freedom you'll have in life around the decisions you make? So first, just the money, the funding. What will the funding mean to you achieving your mission? For example, instead of pursuing a career in investment banking, I can go work for Kiva or something like that. Does that make sense? Also, is the other people in the program, the other scholars are extraordinary, right? So we don't know who will get the scholarship the year you're there, but you can actually go on YouTube, go on LinkedIn, and see who the other people are who have won this fellowship, and what could you learn from them that would amplify what you plan to do. So we don't know who would actually be your cohort, but we know who would be a part of your larger network if you won that scholarship. And then also there's the co-curricular programming, such as the speakers that come in, or the field trips that you take, or the projects they have you work on. And so you could look at the kind of past field trips, projects, special experiences that the fellowship includes, and how would you learn from those? How would you contribute to those? And then there is any sort of special access that the fellowship might give you. So you might get kind of behind the stage access to special speakers that come on campus. Even though I didn't get a full scholarship from Harvard Kennedy School, I did actually end up being a Center for Public Leadership fellow. I got the George Leadership Fellowship my final year of school. And so we got access to even special like career and job listings and things like that. So do as much research as you can on what do you get if you are awarded this fellowship. And then for each of those things, you want to write about how that thing will amplify your impact, make it easier, faster, more efficient for you to achieve your goals of social good. But then also, how will you contribute to other fellows and to the fellowship program as a whole? How is that, Diego?
That's an amazing answer. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Great question. Okay, you are up next. And so nice to be on a call with you.
Hi, Kaneisha. Thank you very much, and good to see you once again.
Yes.
Currently, I don't have much questions. I'm a re-applicant, and I just want to listen in. I'm actually at work. I just want to listen to question and answers.
You're so welcome to listen. One thing I'll say is I generously shared that he's a re-applicant. So he joined Application Accelerator this previous season. And how many schools did you apply to?
I applied to 2 schools. I got admitted to one with a fellowship, but I wasn't able to make it. So I want to reapply to the second school.
Okay, nice. All right, so that's good news. So you did actually get into one of your schools and you got some money, but we're wanting to try again for the other school. Understood. All right, well, if a question occurs to you, you are very welcome to ask it, okay? All righty. Alana, do you have a question?
I do have a question. I'm struggling to understand what I'm eligible for. So for example, Columbia SIPA has a public service scholarship, which is U.S. citizens, which I am also a U.S. citizen, but most of my nonprofit works have not been in the U.S. It does say something about experience in specifically U.S. public service, and then including nonprofit. So yeah, I don't know. This is just like, it happened to be on my mind today. Maybe not my pressing question they have for you, Kaneisha, but I guess we'll get more into the other stuff on our one-to-one call.
Yes. Okay, great. Well, thank you for being here, Alana. One thing I'll just say is something's going on with our audio. I did hear your question, but it was a kind of garbled. So if there's anything I'm missing or I get wrong, you just chime in, okay? What I would suggest is apply pretty widely for any and every fellowship that you are eligible for. Don't count yourself out, let them count you out, with the exception of if a fellowship appears to be coming out of the same kind of center and will likely be reviewed by the same reviewers. So an example for that would be at the Kennedy School. Let's say there's like 3 that you're qualified for or eligible for at the Center for Public Leadership. I cannot say for sure, but I do believe that it's likely that there's some overlap in the reviewers of those fellowships. So what I wouldn't want is for it to look like you are positioning yourself for every single one, not because it's not good to apply to a lot of fellowships, but because they are so specific. We're going to need to say goals that are very aligned with the mission of the fellowship. So if we apply to 3 that have 3 fairly different goals, and then the same person's reading your essays, that doesn't look very good. If you end up working with us as a client, we can literally hand pick through the fellowships. But I'm not saying don't apply to more than one out of the Center for Public Leadership, but let's just not go crazy and do like 4, even if you're eligible for 4. So for that one at Columbia, where it is for US citizens who have done a lot of public service, and it sounds like they want it to be in the US, but most of your public service is outside of the US, I don't want to say for you to not apply at all, but that's probably not one where you're going to be a very strong candidate, right? So is there an equally deliciously good one that is, full scholarship or whatever, whether it's for international students, whether it's for US students? Is there one that more closely aligns with the work that you've done?
Unfortunately, for the Columbia one, they don't have that many available for SIPA, and unfortunately, it's the public service one that seems closest fit, even though it's the perfect fit.
So in that case, Alana, we apply. In that
Okay.
case, we apply. We never count ourselves out early, right? Because then there's a 0% chance. Even if your chances of them giving it to you have been lowered because most of your public service is outside of the US, the chance of you getting it is 0% if you don't apply. So then we would then apply for that. But also know that schools often use merit scholarship funding as a way to recruit you away from their competitors. So if we help get a really good scholarship help you just get into Princeton, right? Where it's fully funded, or we help you get a big juicy scholarship at the Kennedy School, we could then help you negotiate with the schools to request additional financial aid. And our clients are very successful with that process.
Okay, that's good to keep in mind. Thank you.
You are welcome. And to just be clear for you and anyone watching or listening, the most funding usually for graduate programs is usually from the school itself. So yes, there are external scholarships and fellowships, but in general, the biggest source of money is actually going to be from the school itself. For some schools, you're automatically considered for big scholarships, and there's not a big separate application. But then for other schools, Harvard Kennedy School in particular, there's essays you need to submit, and sometimes even letters of recommendation for these scholarships and fellowships. And so it's important that you apply for financial aid, you submit the financial aid application on time, and that you carefully review basically every scholarship and fellowship in the application to see which ones you're eligible for, and that you don't wait until the last minute to start on that process. I'm not exactly sure how it will work this season, but last season and the previous ones recently, you got access for the Harvard Kennedy School financial aid and scholarship application once you submitted your application. So that is kind of the only benefit to applying before the December 1st-ish or whatever deadline. I don't recommend applying, at least not to the Kennedy School or Princeton, months early. Columbia has rolling admissions or several deadlines and things like that. So there could be a benefit to applying early to Columbia, but even so, you have to be very careful, because if you apply to a school early and you hear back early, they're going to start pressuring you to commit, and it might be months before you even hear back from the other schools. Now you've got this awkward situation on your hands.
It's a little bit of a puzzle figuring out the ideal timing of all of it.
That's right. And so when that figuring out the ideal timing happens, if you are an application accelerator, is you have a free quick call. Right now they're with me, yay. And then if we both decide we want to move on to the next step, then we have the breakthrough call. And then at the end of the breakthrough call, if we both agree it's a great fit, then we sign up and get started immediately. And then the next call is currently with Kaneisha as well. And that's called a game plan call. And in that call is when we do what I like to call the devil's math of figuring out when to apply to these schools so that you're not hearing back from, let's say, your number 5 choice 2 months earlier than your number 1 choice and getting pressured to commit too early.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
You are so welcome. And I'm looking forward to our call tomorrow, right? Or Friday?
Likewise.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Kiki, welcome. You're actually up next, and then Isis. And Kiki, if you have any questions about applying to grad school, being in grad school, any part of the application process, I'm happy to answer them.
Good afternoon, Kaneisha and everyone.
For everyone, this is another application accelerator client who's using an alias going by Kiki.
Yes, thank you very much for hosting this Q&A. So I've been going to a lot of information sessions for the colleges that I'm interested in. And I've been asking questions in regards to admissions, et cetera, the culture. However, I would like to talk to an admissions person one-on-one. And I was wondering what you think are some important things to bring up when I do, just to get more information besides information about the curriculum and et cetera.
Yeah, well, I guess my first question would be, have these admissions representatives offered to meet one-on-one, or is this something you just want to do?
They offer office hours
Okay.
where it's one-on-one. So I was wondering, I wanted to take the opportunity and get as much information that I can.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I would really appreciate if you would share on Basecamp in the client forum a link to whatever these one-on-one office hours are so that other clients can take advantage of that as well, please. For these kinds of meetings, we want to ask questions that are not Googleable, right? So we don't want to ask, what are the electives that I can take in economics? Because that's something you can Google. What we want to actually ask are subjective questions that actually give you more insight about the school. And they should also be questions that you have a genuine desire to know the answer to. And if you want bonus points, the questions would be questions that acknowledge that they are a human and not just an information giving. So here are some examples. Besides the people, what is your favorite thing about Princeton SPIA? Here's another question. What is one piece of advice you wish you could give to all incoming MPP students at HKS that they would actually listen to and take that advice? So, right? So what each of my questions has is kind of 2 elements. It has a question, and then it kind of takes away the trite, overused answers. So the first one was like, besides the people. And then the second one was like advice that they would actually take. I would say another good question might be, what is one thing you would change about or shift about the culture here? Don't ask this question at Columbia. Columbia is going through it right now. Do not ask this question at Columbia. But what's something about the culture that you would shift? They will have opinions. For example, when I was at Harvard Business School, I literally had 2 different professors do kind of a mini intervention on me during office hours because they wanted to urgently give me advice that they felt my classmates just wouldn't take, but that they thought I would be open to. So 2 professors did that, and I'll tell you what the advice was. And then in a group setting, they also did kind of a please listen to us. So here's what it was. In the group setting, the please listen to us, and I can't even remember what the group setting was, but it was hundreds of us. It may have been my entire class. And it was some professors or people from the career services office. This is 2008, 9, and 10. They said, hey, I know that investment banking and management consulting are the very popular career paths right now, and that's kind of what everyone wants to do. But there's a real danger in succumbing to herd mentality, which there can be a lot of here at Harvard Business School. And we're really asking you very earnestly to be very honest with yourself if investment banking and management consulting is the right fit for you. Yes, the pay is great, but when you actually look at how many hours you will be working, you might as well be at McDonald's. They said something really over the top like that. And it hit me. It was like, ooh, you know, it was sobering. I had been through final round McKinsey interviews, things like that. So I'd been through that experience. It was not for me. We also took an assessment called Career Leader that I really like and sometimes have clients take. I'll give you guys the link to it. You guys could take the assessment and then bring it to one of these kind of calls, like the client calls. We can go over it there. You don't have to use your hours for that. But anyway, in that assessment, it ranked like 100 different post-MBA type career paths. And literally at the very bottom for me was investment banking. So it really was not for me. So that was the advice they gave us in the group setting. Then the advice I got privately, one from a strategy professor that I was very close to, and then one from my consumer marketing professor that I wasn't close to her, but like I did well in her class. And my consumer marketing professor was just like, Kaneisha, you remind me so much of my youngest son. Like, you're just radiant in class. Like, if I ever need to feel pumped up, I just glance your way and you're just beaming at me. And it makes me feel like somebody's listening. And she was just like, please don't go into a huge corporation where you're going to just be a number. I do not think you will like it. I do not think it will be good for you. I do not think it's a good match for you. I think you need to do something a little bit more creative or independent. I don't know what that is. But because that other professor had already done his intervention on me, I was already ready to say, I know, but the other professor already told me. And she was like, okay, good. And then that other professor, the strategy professor, I was in his office hours, and he basically just was like, do not go into management consulting, do not go into investment banking. I do not think you will like it. And he was like, I actually want you to come work for me. So he was trying to pitch me to go work for him for his startup. We didn't end up doing that. But my point is you can actually get some very candid feedback from professors, from current students, from former students, from admissions representatives when you ask these questions that are subjective and you make it clear that you're open to their feedback. And so that's why I'm giving you these example questions that are not surface level questions. Another one you could ask of like a current student or a recent alum would be, if there's something you would do differently about your experience in grad school, what would it be? And I asked a woman who was 20 years out of HBS. She was a Black woman, and she told me, I really wish I had stayed in closer touch with my section mates. So many of them are these C-suite executives, multimillionaires, a few billionaires, and like so much power. They run the world. And like, I didn't make much effort to keep in touch with them. And that was like, okay, you know, like do that, Kaneisha. And just being honest, while I was at Harvard, especially at HBS, it's just so much bigger and so intense. I hung out with my section for the big section things. I traveled with my section internationally for the big section things. But for my like Saturdays, my weekends, my social life, I really stuck pretty closely to the other students in the African American Student Union. And those were my closest friends, which is totally fine. However, I remember what that woman said. And so I have made it very intentional to keep in touch with my section mates. And we have a WhatsApp group, and I graduated 15 years ago, but we have a WhatsApp group where we're talking once a week in there. And since it's a group chat, you know, you don't feel like you have to be saying stuff all the time, but we're sharing pictures from our weddings, pictures of our, I don't have kids, but pictures of our kids, sharing job opportunities with each other, My husband got this startup offer and neither of us understood, like, is this a good offer or not a good offer? And I texted in the group chat, and within 20 minutes, I had 3 people like, I'll get on a call with you, I'll explain it to you, any questions you have. And like, I can ask them what I call like stupid questions. So I have different classmates that I ask my stupid questions to. So I got someone I ask my stupid finance questions to. I have someone I ask my stupid this kind of questions to. But guess what? I am also a resource. It's time for their kids actually to be applying to college. So they're coming to me with those kind of questions or asking me questions about neurodivergence since I have ADHD and my husband's neurodivergent as well. Even if you're not super close or you're not the most popular or whatever in the section, I remembered to stay close to my section. And so when they come into town, we go out to dinner and like, no, I may not have been invited to their wedding or maybe they weren't invited to mine, but like we will always have had that intense graduate school experience. And so we'll be there for each other through those major kind of needs you might have in life. So I will say that I'm still super close to my girlfriends from grad school.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. So yeah, those questions can reveal a lot. You all can ask me those kind of questions. You can practice with me. But you can also practice with your consultant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your consultants all went through these graduate school experiences. And you can also, for the academy members, you can also practice on these group coaching calls with the host. So make sure you show up for those calls because they have different experiences than I do. So you can even, get more answers to those kind of questions.
Thank you.
You are so welcome, Kiki. Thanks for being here. Isis, do you have any questions? And Alana, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It was just a follow-up on something you already said. That's why I jumped in. I'm hoping to do some in-person campus visits to these schools, and I have actually a one-on-one 15-minute call with the Princeton admissions already set up. I've been wondering, is it advisable or appropriate to ask questions like, especially with respect to Columbia, which was so much in the news last year over sort of the attacks from the federal government and making a lot of adjustments to comply and all of that. I'm really actually curious about how the culture of campus may have changed recently. Is that something that is okay to ask?
What a good question. The short answer is no. We are in precedented times. We have seen what is happening in the US. We have seen this before. For those of you who have been paying attention in history class, world history. So we do not have freedom of speech in the US in the same way we have historically had. So you're not going to get a real honest answer because everyone's trying to protect their job. Everyone's trying to protect their families, the school funding. If you want to talk about that, you should ask about that to current students. And I would ask that primarily of US students who aren't at risk of losing their visa. I know this sounds so extreme, but even before things were this heated in the US, I had classmates from the Kennedy School, more than one, imprisoned in their countries for, for speaking out against things. And that's where we're moving in the US. This is an experiment. They call it the American experiment. So we're getting to test the bounds and the strengths of our institutions and the Constitution and all of that. And so it's not looking as strong as I at least thought it was, or a lot of us thought it was. So I don't think you get an honest answer. I don't have anything to lose in terms of a job or getting into these schools or whatever. But what we don't want is for the school to be like, ooh, is this person gonna be protesting in the quad or whatever? And I'm so sad because protesting was one of my favorite things to do in college. But these are precedented times.
Thank you. That was my hunch, but I appreciate the confirmation, and it's really unfortunate, but it does make sense given where things stand.
Yeah. And I don't want to make it seem like I want people to put their head down and do nothing and not be a part of the solution. But what I don't also want is a small payoff of getting an answer to a question to take away from your bigger goal, which is get into this school, get this education, this extraordinary network, extraordinary experience, and then to be unleashed on the world, even more capable and empowered to bring about the change that we so much need. That question, that's like not even a battle, that's like a micro scuffle, right? We need to be preparing for the longer journey of positive social change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Diego, I felt like, or I thought I heard you about to say something, but maybe that was me pretending.
Okay, thank you very much. Going back into these KHS and the fellowships, one of the things that really strikes out to me is that the KHS only allows you to submit one page for your resume. I have a 2-pager. I feel that I have a lot that I want to tell, but I don't know what to add or how to compress all this story.
You can always bring it to a call and we can just get it down. So things that you can immediately delete is if you have a line that has your contact information, delete that because they're not going to use that to contact you. And then we would look at ways that we can say something more concisely so that you're still getting to keep as many of your experiences as possible. That's another way we would save some space. We don't want to cram too much in though, because it does need to still be very nice to look at and easy to absorb the information. So we're not going to give you 0.2-inch margins. We're not going to go down to like 9-point font or something like that, because real humans need to read these resumes. But an outside person will be able to, whether that's me, your consultant, or a different consultant on the team, more easily delete stuff because it's not our stuff, right? So it's a lot harder when it's your own stuff to delete it, but we'll be able to delete the stuff that we feel like either got captured elsewhere in your application, captured in a different bullet point, or just can go. So you don't actually just take a 2-page resume and lop off the second page. We actually delete little things throughout the resume to see what we end up with.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Feel free to bring it to a group call. We used to do separate calls for Q&A and separate calls for live editing, and now we're just all mixing it all together.
Okay, thank you.
You are so welcome. So we have 9 minutes left. So we have time for me to answer another question, and then we'll do a wrap up where we'll all go around and talk about a takeaway that we've had from the call.
I do have a little
Yep.
follow-up question.
Yeah, go ahead.
This time it's instead of MPA programs, it's about MBAs. I'm
Okay.
looking at the consortium. It looks like an amazing opportunity. I don't know if it's the same kind of story that I want to tell for an MPA or how to frame it that it's different over here. What's the difference between MPA applications and the consortium for MBAs, which has its own mission that it's kind of civic related, but in a way it's only for business programs, right?
Yes, just so everybody understands, the Consortium for Graduate Study and Management is a nonprofit organization that historically their mission has been to advance diversity in business education and business leadership. Their mission is now to enhance representation in business education and leadership. They are an extraordinary organization that provides access to companies for early recruiting, for MBA type internships, to a half fellowship for business school or a full fellowship for business school, as well as a more streamlined application process for business schools. So anyone who is a US citizen or permanent resident who has done things in their personal life, professional life, volunteer work, their job that enhances or supports the consortium's mission is welcome to apply. And so I do encourage anyone considering business school, regardless of your race or ethnicity, if you are a US permanent resident or US citizen, please do strongly consider applying to business school through the consortium. Schools like Stanford are in it, Columbia, lots of great schools, Yale, Dartmouth, all kinds of schools. And of what I know about you, Diego, no problem. Like it's in the back, right? So you have attended the economics summer program that I imagine is for underrepresented college students, is it?
That's correct.
Right. And then you were a TA, right, for it, or like a leader of the teaching and such. So there's no question that you are eligible to apply through the consortium, right? Because by developing your own self into an economics expert and then mentoring others, you show people what's possible. And then I also remember, if I'm correct, that you started the economics club at your university.
Yep. Good memory.
Right. Yep. And so like your university is already, I would imagine, officially or unofficially a historically Hispanic serving institution. So whether they're officially or not, right? I know the city it's in, and that city is is Latin America, basically. So the fact that you started that club is also great for your consortium mission essay. And then everything going on with your former boss, you know, I'm not gonna dox you or whatever, but like everything going on with your former boss right now and the good work that she does and what she stands for, right? So you got it from all angles.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So for you, it's for your policy school applications, you want to focus on what you have contributed to the public good, right? If your stakeholders is the general public, what have you done that has made the world a better place? And then for your consortium applications, we're focusing on how have you increased representation, whether it's through your extracurricular activities, your academics, your job in business, right? And economics is the foundation or the macro view of business and affects business. So that's kind of the shift, is our focus is really on business for the consortium, and your economics is and business are intertwined. And for policy school, it's on the public good. And we know, right, that business is not synonymous with the public good. It can be, but it can also, sometimes there can be these, you know, in economics, we call them negative externalities from businesses. Of course, we want to be doing good while doing business, but that's not really what the consortium's asking. They're asking, have you increased representation in business leadership and business education? And you have literally done that. Increased representation in business education and business leadership. Alana, do you want to talk a little bit about the consortium and how you might fit in?
This is the first I'm hearing about the consortium. It's very interesting. Please, I apologize if it's me mishearing, but it's just for business, right? For MBA, not MPA.
Yes. Okay, so you're not, okay, so.
No, I'm only focused on the MPA, on the policy side.
Understood. We'll let you know, Alana, that a lot of people start to get the itch that they want to also add on a few business schools. I think that's what happened with Kiki after her game plan call. I will not pressure you, but I will answer your questions or encourage you.
I'll think about it. Honestly, it hadn't even crossed my mind to pursue an MBA, but now you've given me food for thought. So I'll circle back to you on that.
Absolutely. And the reason why I do encourage, in particular, women, people of color, and or people from other marginalized communities, like if you're LGBTQ or if you're neurodivergent or some other kind of wild card, as I call them, to consider what I call the do-gooder degrees and the greedy degrees. So the do-gooder degrees are like social work, policy, education, divinity, right? The greedy degrees are business, law, somewhat medicine, okay? MPH I'll put over with the do-gooders. The reason I often encourage people to combine, if they're going for a do-gooder degree with a greedy degree, is that a lot of times when you come out into the work world, the jobs you're applying for, you will be competing with people who have the greedy degrees. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's the same exact job, but if you have that MBA or you have a JD, a law degree, then that can sometimes help you get paid 10K more, 20K more to do the exact same job.
I had no idea.
Yes. And so we're already always having to battle as women or as people of color. We're always having to battle getting paid, 60 cents to the dollar of other people who come from the majority or the privileged group. And so I always want to educate my clients to do what we can to position ourselves well. We are only individuals. This is a systemic issue and it has to be addressed on a systemic level, right? To be a sustainable solution. But in our individual lives, there are things we can do to kind of help stack the odds in our favor.
Good
Yeah.
advice. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Okay, so we're going to go around now, starting with Kiki. So we're going to go Kiki, then Isis, then Diego, then Alana. We're going to go around and just say kind of one takeaway from today's call. It could be like the favorite topic we discussed, or something you're like, oh, I didn't know that, or something you're going to put into action. So go ahead and kick us off, Kiki.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for also sharing their questions. I've definitely learned a lot. My takeaway is definitely the importance of basically reading the room and knowing what questions should be asked and who to ask those specific questions. Yeah, that's my major takeaway.
Yeah, I like that. Wonderful. Kanayo.
Thank you very much. My takeaway will be on the very last thing you spoke about, positioning yourself to be competitive in the labor market after the program. I haven't thought about that much, but with what you just said, I'm going to give it a deep thought after this session.
I like that. Okay, thank you for sharing. And always happy to further discuss in the forum or on one of these calls. Awesome. Okay, Isis.
For me, the takeaway was cultural competency and just making sure that we apply that when speaking with individuals in position of power that may make a decision if we do choose to attend the forum or how we contribute to our essays.
Absolutely. And so, another way I would put that is like, how much of my values do I need to put on display at this moment, right? Or is it worth it to, sorry to put it this way, tone it down a bit at a certain moment because it will get us further where we're trying to get. Not trying to put words in your mouth. I just want to add more to, okay, I got a heart. So I think, I think it was a good. Okay. All right. And then we have Diego and then Alana.
Thank you for this session, Kaneisha. The most valuable thing that I got is how to pitch myself a bit more towards the fellowship objectives, the why me, why now, and why the school, especially about how that money that they bring in will help me, how the people of the cohort will help me, and what I can bring to them as well.
That's right. Beautiful. Alana, it's your turn. Sorry.
Yeah. No problem. No worries at all. My takeaway is when in doubt, rely on common sense, because all of the answers to all of our questions, when you think about it, they really are just kind of common sense. But I think during the application process, it's easy to overthink things. It's easy to get bogged down in certain details, but sometimes we need to hear it from somebody else, or we need to discuss it out loud with someone so you can actually arrive at that conclusion.
Beautiful. And to give you all a framework, because you may be like, well, somebody's common sense is different than someone else's common sense. I would say, here's me again with some C's, is let's always kind of balance when we're trying to make a decision. And let's say you don't have access to me or whatever, when we're moving through the world, we want to balance caution with courage, with confidence. Okay. So let's talk about, I want to ask what the school's current stance is on the Israel-Palestine conflict during the admissions Q&A, right? Well, why don't we think through that? It does maybe take some courage to ask that question, probably take some confidence to also ask that question, but we may be practicing a little bit too little bit of caution in that the schools are being wrecked right now, internally and externally, over issues related to this. This might not be the question you want to ask if you actually want to get into the school. So that's my 3 C's for you, is caution, confidence. I done already forgot the third C. What's the third C, y'all? Caution, confidence.
Courage.
Yeah, so courage, confidence, and caution. So it's just, we want to kind of find a balance in there. And then those 3 things can kind of equal what we mean when we say common sense. All right, this was awesome, y'all. I'm really excited to send this to our editors, and I will cover up anything like your last name and things like that. So don't worry about that. and just really excited to get to show people on the outside what it's like to work with our team here at the Art of Applying, and to just ask your questions, to learn, to have breakthroughs, and to connect with other people as well in the program. So thank you all so much for joining me at like the last minute, and it just means so much to me, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thanks for watching. Are you ready to take your application process to the next level? The Art of Applying helps you get into the graduate school of your dreams and get money to pay for it. Book a free quick call from the link in the description to get started. And subscribe to our channel for more application tips and success stories.